for want of a better phraseology. In this e-meeting, we plan to take up the following issues. One is the recent announcement of the quarterly returns and the monthly payment scheme for less than 5 crores. That would be the first topic. The second topic would be the issues concerning around e-invoicing, which have celebratedly started with 500 crores and soon to be starting with 100 crore turnover SSEs also. And the third topic would be the focus
Mr.
of...
Sridhar, just a minute, just a minute. Somebody says there is no voice. Sridhar, can you just check up that?
I was able to hear.
Yeah, we can hear, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine.
The third topic for the day...
There is a message from somebody that there is no voice.
Oh my God. The third topic would be the focus of tax evasion and the larger issue centering around what the law committee has recently recommended, and it has also been available in the public financial press also, with regard to the multi-pronged attack on fake invoices. And last but not the least, the information in the AS26 returns and certain recent notices with regard to service tax for the pre-GST period, with regard to the differences in the AS26 information and the service tax returns submitted so earlier. So this is the broad set of topics we will be having for the day. I welcome on for this evening the following panelists: Mr. Subramanian, Advocate, Chennai; Mr. Anil Bhardwaj, General Secretary, FISME; Mr. Sant Kumar Verma, our usual representative from the industry, is there on record. Mr. Sant Verma is finance head of Luminous India, and we already have our in-house stalwarts also in Mr. Vijay Kumar, our editor-in-chief from Hyderabad, and our founder editor, Mr. Shailendra Kumar. So to start the proceedings, these are the 4 topics. So how do we go about in a formal views that will be given by the 3 panelists, and we will take the second round based on the contentious issues, and then we follow up with interventions and question answers. So actually the larger issue in the last 2 weeks, I must say, to set the context, though the 4 topics are equally important, I wouldn't place one over the other as more important than the other. But as the moderator, considering the last 2 weeks of focus, or must I say so, 3 weeks of focus of the Department of Revenue Intelligence with the DGGSTI and the state intelligence, there is a lot of activity going on, anti-evasion activity with regard to various fake invoices. There has been a multi-pronged attack by the department with regard to the fake invoices. That is perhaps taking much of the agenda when there are larger issues equally also. So it is not my perhaps humble submission that the panelists must only focus on this. So I would request now first Mr. Subramanian to give his formal views, and then we will proceed with Mr. Bhardwaj and Mr. Sant Verma. Over to Mr. Subramanian first for his initial views.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sridhar. Thanks for the opportunity. Probably in terms of the four topics, I would also start with the third topic, which is basically in terms of the fake invoices. I can definitely see that the department is very concerned, and I'm sure the assessees are equally concerned. So the question is, where do we draw the line? One of the basic issues which is really coming up in terms of what the department is trying to do is they seem to be clubbing everything together. See, let's understand. The department has issued a letter also to the state governments regarding the whole problem of fake invoices, and of course whatever the law committee is recommending is all furtherance of what are the concerns that has been expressed in that particular circular. Yes, where there is an issue of invoice, there is no supply. Technically, I would say that the law does not prohibit somebody from issuing an invoice and then not supplying at all. Perhaps in that case, whatever you paid as GST, get it back or whatever. So I wouldn't call that as a fake invoice as long as the supply is forthcoming later on. Second is where there is a diversion of the goods, which is a very, very serious issue, because many times the invoice is sold to a particular party. This used to happen even in central excise heavily. So the invoice is issued to somebody, particularly in the SSI sector. Invoice is given to somebody who takes credit, and the goods actually land up with somebody else. I'm sure we used to use kind of the various ratios, etc., to find out what kind of a diversion has taken place, and of course to collect the records for that. But the third thing which I wanted to basically highlight is there are several incentives, perverse incentives, which are available to the to the trade for increasing, for example, turnover. One of the issues would be that this would actually probably help them to get extra credit, and we know that there are practices which are there in the industry, not only now, it has been there for a long time, where you show a higher amount of top line, though the bottom line remains practically the same. So now what is it? I mean, yes, there is an issue in this particular case. Either there can be an issue of invoice which increases the top line without any movement of goods, which is a serious problem. There can also be cases where the same goods could do round tripping. I mean, which I think is also a practice which is going on in the trade. Now, if there is a round tripping, which is again it goes and then probably goes to from A to B, B to C, C to D, and then comes back to A. This is all possible. But no question is, I wouldn't really, even under the law, typically call this as fake invoices. But I understand that the department is treating these as fake invoices. So therefore, there are certain practices which seem to be there in the in the trade, which actually are also treated as fake invoices, and the department is taking heavier action on this. Maybe there are concerns. I don't have any issues about it. But see, typically, what is the department actually losing? Is it losing in terms of revenue? I'd say no, because every time the money is paid, and then only it is all clear. Second is there no movement of goods? I would say, at least in whatever example I'm giving, it is not. But yes, there could be several cases where you have not seen the movement of goods. I know the department has also found out several cases where movement of goods has been shown through e-way bills. But whatever, instead of showing lorries, they would have recorded, let's say, some scooters. So I'm sure these are all definitely cases which are worth pursuing by the department. But there could be certain genuine issues which are not relevant to the department. There could be certain issues which are definitely relevant to the department. But you have to now distinguish between the two, which is perhaps not happening. This is one thing I wanted to highlight. Maybe there will be views on that. Yes, second issue would be in terms of reconciliation between the different listen. See, there used to be a time when we used to book cases there used to be cases booked between the records as shown, the stock as shown for the banks, and then the the RG1 register. And then people used to come back and then say, no, I don't have any, these are not RG1, they're not reached the RG1 stage, but I have shown it only for stock purposes. So this is one more issue which is coming up again in the form of exchange of information between various tax departments, various other other authorities. Yes, there has to be a proper reconciliation, but that reconciliation, the prima facie, there is some deviation between the two, does not necessarily mean that there is an evasion. And that is where I think the department seems to be taking up a very kind of a omnibus stand, that wherever there is a discrepancy, it amounts to evasion. That's, I think, not the way to go about it. I mean, I'll come to that issue of reduction in the invoice, threshold, e-invoice threshold. One of the basic issues I still have is, see, whenever we are talking about 500 crore and above, there are some statistics. Of course, it keeps varying. I think only about 50,000 to 70,000, registrants who actually contribute about 45% of the entire tax revenues, and they are all above 500 crore. So why is it that the department, particularly when you have COVID, hanging all over, why is it that the department is so keen on reducing the threshold to 100 crore, particularly when we do not, I mean, at least I don't have the exact number, but I do expect that it's not going to be 50,000, but it is going to be, let's say, in the order of around somewhere in a few lakhs. Definitely, it's about 5 to 7 lakhs is what I, what I have as a very, basic information. All of them may not be even prepared at this stage. Now, why are they reducing the threshold, and that too in a hurry, particularly when people, the smaller, kind of players are having sufficient, already having a lot of problems, even in terms of, going ahead with their regular work. That's one major thing. I don't know whether there is enough capacity in the market to build their capacity to raise the invoices, because it also requires reconfiguring their systems, etc., which is perhaps not really being looked at. And the last issue which I wanted to highlight is in terms of the quarterly return, monthly payment. See, quarterly return is only a technical, deferment of filing of a return. Why is it that the department, what is the benefit that, assessee is getting out of it? I'm still trying to find out, though there is a huge amount of complex, changes which they brought about. I don't know, maybe it's very good for the consultants, but technically, I don't know what is the benefit that the assessee is going to get out of it by way of, such a complex structure which they are giving. I think, is it facilitating, ease of doing business, or is it actually complicating ease of doing business? The department is making it look as if it is facilitating ease of doing business. My view, it is perhaps, there is a reason why the department is doing this. That is perhaps to reduce the amount of tax credit which is being taken. I mean, of course, for maybe some genuine reasons, and maybe not for, maybe for because of certain other concerns. But definitely, this is, I wouldn't say it is contributing to any ease of doing business. The only benefit at best I see in terms of what the assessees may get is maybe in certain cases there is going to be non-levy of interest. That's the only benefit I see. However, the compliance cost associated with this is something which has to be set off against this, and I'm pretty certain it also has one more issue about it, which is, I have some limitation in terms of the amount of credit I can pass on, because the first 2 months I need to also, I can only specify only invoices up to about 50 lakhs where the counterparty can take credit, which means the complexity which has been brought in, I think it's surely not helping in ease of doing business. I think these are my opening remarks. Kindly, if you could go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subramanian. With regard to your comments on invoice furnishing facility, we'll come to it in the second round. We would allow Mr. Anil Bhardwaj first to come up with his comments. And over to you, Mr. Anil Bhardwaj. Thank you. Mr. Anil, I think your mic is not switched on. Your mic is perhaps mute. I hope you are able to hear me. Mr. Anil
Yes,
Bhardwaj.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Please go ahead. Your comments, please. Initial comments.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So let me begin first about the issue of quarterly returns. See, SMEs are a heterogeneous sector, as you know. And there has been a huge divergence in sector's view with regards to what should be or versus services provided.
Shikhar, it appears we have lost the volume. Can you please help us?
I think, Sridhar, there is a connectivity issue also.
He was talking and we lost the volume. Mr. Shikhar, can you please check what's happening to the volume, please? Because it's suddenly gone mute. We are not able to hear Mr. Anil Bhardwaj at all.
Both audio and video are gone.
Yeah, both audio and video.
Yeah.
I think it's a connectivity problem, Sridhar.
Mr. Sridhar, maybe you can ask Mr. Sant to
I think
before
Sant,
he joins.
Yeah, we can move to the industry for the time being. We can ask Mr. Anil, Mr. Sant to perhaps step in and give us the industry views on all the 4 subjects until we get reconnected to Mr. Anil Bhardwaj, and then we can once again shift back. Go to Mr. Sant.
Sure, Sridhar. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me pick up one of these topics one by one. Quarterly return and monthly payment.
I'm sorry, there was some problem in my connection.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we were under the assumption that you got disconnected and then...
No. There was some problem otherwise. So can I continue if you don't mind?
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Please go ahead. Sant, sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So
these are the challenges of technology when we connect remotely.
Yes.
Yes,
So coming on the quarterly returns once again. So FISME's views has been that or rather we endorse that, monthly return is a much better option than the quarterly returns. As a matter of fact, many of our MSME suppliers approached us and they asked us that, when their buyers are asking that, if they are not filing monthly returns, then they are not interested in buying from them. So it's like kind of a self-discipline within the system, which perhaps would push more and more people to monthly settlement on GST issue. Second point is with regards to 100 crore invoicing. See, I do not have an official view as yet on this issue because it is not yet made public. But personally, I think a company having 100 crore turnover should be in a position to gear up its system to comply. Keeping in view of the latest definition that we have, see, micro and small are out. And basically, it is the medium enterprises having a turnover of 100 crore because currently the limit is 50 crore for small enterprises, and from 50 to 250 would be medium enterprises. So essentially, we are talking about medium enterprises. How many medium enterprises we have, by the way? It is 0.01% actually, less than that, of the MSME sector. And these are the larger ones, and they should be in a position to perhaps handle. This is my personal opinion. I'm not representing FISME on this particular issue because I do not have an official feedback as yet. On the issue of fake invoices and tax evasion, I don't have sufficient information to comment. I would rather be a student and listen to the experts. And I would rather brief my members based on certain comments that I hear from the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhardwaj. Thank you for your views on the reduction of the invoicing limits, mainly from your personal point of view. Over to Sant right now for the views from the industry, which is very important for us.
Thank you, Sridhar, again. I think let me start with this fake invoice point where Law Committee has expressed a few thoughts. See, as part of the industry, I have worked with large Indian companies and multinationals. I have worked in some of the companies, and one is Coca-Cola, where Sridhar and me, we were together. We experienced that there are certain sections of the business community, which we call as unorganized sector, had the natural tendency of evading all the taxes. And I'll not get into how they were doing it, how they used to do it, and how they are doing even still today. But there is a section which continues to put pressure on the tax collection, on the economy, as well as on the rest of the organized sector. In my current company as well, I'll give one example. Pre-GST implementation, the kind of market share all the organized players had in the overall business pie, and the share that they have now post GST implementation, we see a marked change and difference, and the share of market share of organized sector has gone up, which means that GST is making little difficult for the unorganized sector to carry on with their practices which are unhealthy. And I think when I say unhealthy, most of this means evasion of taxes. So fake invoice is a subset of that. So I think in that sense, it's a concern, and I'm sure the policymakers are mindful about it. And any action in that regard, I would say that it's a welcome one. We keep hearing news. We have been hearing news for the last 3 years, more than 3 years now, post GST implementation. Then in city A or city B or city C, so many fake invoices have been picked up, and there were raids and all of that. Credit is being passed on without any supply and all of that. So I think this is a problem. I don't know. I don't have data to figure out the magnitude, etc. But of course, this is a problem, and those in the industry, in the organized sector, especially in certain sectors, we also experience that unorganized sector has undue advantage, and it needs to go away. Very quickly, turning my focus on the e-invoicing, I think it's more than a month now. We had 1 month of kind of moratorium from 1st of October. Now, from 1st of November, this is in place, and I think most of the large companies, they were prepared, and I in a way I was happy that the date did not get extended as was initially anticipated in October or end of September, because then it shows that the government doesn't have much of resolve. They are too flexible, and you can't keep on ramping up resources every time and then go back and then say, okay, let's do it again 3 months later. So I think in my experience, it's working well, at least in my company and many of the other companies friends I'm in touch with. And reducing the limit to 100 crore, I recall that the original plan actually was 100 crore and above to implement e-invoicing for businesses. In the run-up to the implementation, there was a relaxation, and some breather was given to the category which is 100 crore to 500 crore. And that comes back now. And from 1st of January, I think there is a date for them. So, and it's a 100 crore is a decent turnover. One would assume that the state and industry in this bracket would have means to implement e-invoicing. And I've also learned in last maybe year or so, since we have been talking about e-invoicing, that there are reasonably good cheap solutions available. You don't have to really go to a very costly one. There are easy solutions available for e-invoicing. A very quick thought on the other topic, which is quarterly return and monthly tax payment. The way I saw this scheme, as it's applicable to the smaller one, since it's not impacting large companies, I have not looked at from that angle. But very theoretically, when I went through the scheme, I figured out that this is more as an option. It is not compulsory. It's an option for the traders in that bracket, which is less than 5 crore, to go for it. So in my view, if they find this to be easy and simplifying their lives on compliance platform, I think they can go for it. Of course, payment is on a monthly basis. There is a presumptive concept kind of invoked there, which is 1 or 2 methods I figured out that have been given, where they can make payment based on those any of those 2 methods. And the 3rd month it gets reconciled and it gets matched with the return position. So I look at it as an option. So I think if people find it easy, they can go for it. So yeah, Sridhar, that's it from my side.
From TIOL, I think I would request Mr. Vijay and Mr. Shailendra to please give their initial intervention thoughts on the subjects. Then I have got a few things to say from what the speakers have just now said, based on whatever internal research that we have done in TIOL. Over to Mr. Vijay.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar. It's really surprising. We talk too much about fake invoices. As Mr. Sivasubramanian said, department is concerned, SSCs are concerned, and he left out the consultants. They are also concerned. So we live in a world where there is so much of concern. And he has pointed out that maybe the fake invoices are really not all that fake. Whether it is fake invoice resulting in loss of revenue or fake invoices resulting in some procedural lapse. Obviously, the fake invoices are to a large extent fake, resulting in loss of revenue, at least going by the number of raids conducted by the BGGI and even the arrest of several consultants. But perhaps he's right. If somebody raises an invoice and pays the tax, and if there is some dispute, some procedural lapse, the government doesn't lose anything. But obviously, the fake invoice manufacturers are not really paying the tax. There is some problem there. But then, more than the SSCs or the consultants who are in connivance with the SSCs who are evading, I think this is a simple system which the government should rectify. After all, we live in a world of technology. Long ago, in the early 80s or late 80s, when the Moderator scheme was introduced, when the invoice or the gate pass had to be physically produce, deliver, duplicate for the transporter, original for the consignee, and all those things. Even then, there used to be a lot of fake invoices, and the department used to have their own little islands of excellence where they used to try to match these invoices and put them into a system and find out what is a fake or what is a real one. Today, it should be possible. There is something wrong with the government, something wrong with the GST, and something wrong with, I don't know if I can name the supplier of the software to the government. In fact, 2 years ago, Mr. Nandan Nilenkani told the GST Council, this is all simple. If you can have your invoice matched electronically, this problem would not be there at all. So perhaps we are making a lot of noise because of the incompetence of the government in implementing the electronic GST. And as for this monthly and quarterly and all that, we find that every simplification effort by the government lands up in more complication. The ease of doing business becomes a disease of doing business. I think initially, anyway, Mr. Sridhar says that he has a lot of research material up there. I'll wait for that for my further comments. Thank you, Sridhar.
Thank you. Shailendra, over to you, Shailendra, for your views. Any initial interventions?
I have borrowed quite a few points from all the speakers and panelists, but they have rightly said that the fake invoices. Good number of us probably we see that as not a problem, but actually it is a serious problem because a lot of actions taking place, a lot of raids, a lot of SSs being booked. And if we analyze the modus operandi of some of the interesting cases, we will come across that this age-old problem coming from the central excise. Of course, it's a legacy issue, and this sort of problem is not unique to GST. This is something which is there in every tax system and under different heads, and this fake invoices being dealt very seriously, being taken very seriously by the GST Council, and they had also set up a task force. And the magnitude of the problem has been quite disturbing. And my fear is that if such a trend continues, probably good number of honest taxpayers and good number of consultants who are assisting the honest SSEs in complying with some of those procedures of GST, perhaps they will have a tough time because a lot of provisions are going to be perhaps amended, new procedures being perhaps rolled out. All those issues will come. Particularly the new registration is going to be made a little tougher. And as per the GST and data, they have as many as 6 lakhs dormant registrations. Which were perhaps migrated from the pre-GST era to GST, and good number of them were given registration number, but they remain dormant. In fact, as per one intelligence, sort of, culled out by GSTN, as many as 35 to 40,000 taxpayers who have more than 5 lakhs of tax liability, they have not paid the GST. Their data also revealed that in last 3 years, they have not paid even 1 lakh rupees of income tax. So what is happening is not the data sharing between CBDT and CBIC. Apparently, coming out with a lot of interesting intelligence, and that is also triggering various kinds of action on the ground level from the field formation. Like, for instance, you talked about the 26As data, the TDS thing, and lots of mismatch in ST3 returns, etc. And finally, good number of so-called notices being issued by the field formations across the country now because they were getting time barred, etc. So all these problems further, making the water a little more murkier. And my only fear is the GST, which was supposed to be a simple system, good and simple, perhaps, what was initially billed as and targeted. And it is not going to be as simple as what we thought. It's going to be a little more tougher, particularly for those who are honest SSCs. And the system is taking a kind of very, very thorny turn now. and perhaps that will hurt good number of SSCs. That is about the fake invoices. But as regard the e-invoicing, yes, 100 crore thing has been already notified, and it looks like that the department intends to bring down that 100 crore to 5 crore, perhaps maybe quite early in 2021. It will depend on this pandemic situation, how fast we are able to deal with the pandemic, and things are brought under control. Department is very keen. In fact, council is very keen that they are looking at the e-invoicing as a kind of antidote for a lot of fake invoices, and perhaps they are looking at, if you look at the number which they shared, for the month of October, close to 5 crore invoices. So that's a huge number, and NIC has been able to handle it quite efficiently. And it appears that they are going for this mega technology upgradations, for this handling this 100 crore, their SSCs. So that perhaps will also is going to be being looked upon or analyzed or being seen as a kind of effective instrument to deal with this problem. And once it is reduced to 5 crore, that will of course generate huge amount of invoices. We will have to see, and we have to look for in the future how exactly this kind of trend is analyzed, how effective and efficient it is, and how efficiently the NIC is able to cater to the needs of the SSCs, because invoicing is something which cannot be stopped, which cannot be delayed. So that's a challenging situation. We have to look forward to future and see how it turns out. And as regard this, as rightly pointed out by some of you, and even Mr. Bhardwaj, that this quarterly return and monthly payment system, it's a concept which has been apparently borrowed from income tax, because there we have this advanced tax payment system. And similarly, they have worked out 35% of last quarter, the tax liability one has to pay. But it will create problem, particularly for the buyers who are going to look forward to availing this ITC. And if somebody is going to go for this quarterly return, naturally, I don't see too many takers for this, except as Mr. Sant suggested, that a few traders perhaps, where ITC is not a big issue, and it depends on their own, the clientele, who are whether they are going to utilize ITC, and that issue is there as a relevant point for their sale. If it is not so, then of course, perhaps a few traders will go for this scheme, but most of them will not prefer this scheme. Thank you, Mr. Sridhar.
Yeah. See, I would just like to talk about this fraud analytics in terms of some internal thought process that I think I had after some exchange with Shailendra earlier. See, first of all, even if you look at the larger scheme of things, assuming that whatever they have said for 15, though I agree it's not a GST period 15, 16 and 16, 17. And if there is a difference between the AS26 information and the service tax returns, we did a simple analysis, what could be the basis? And we came up with a few points. I thought I will reply this also to Mr. Vijay Kumar. First of all, in the TDS returns, there is a concept of that if you want to apply for a lower rate of tax, you can apply for a lower rate of tax or a nil rate of tax. So what is that impact of that difference on that 12 lakh crore, which came in that very famous economic press interview that came about, and as a result of which they said there's a lot of difference in the 15, 16, 16, 17 information. Second thing is in the TDS principle with regard to the analysis, every sum paid is taxed. Most of the sections focus on sum paid, but what is taxed under the service tax law is the service income. Thirdly would be, what is the treatment with regard to the expenses reimbursed? There could be subject to TDS, but whether they are not treated as pure agent under the service tax law, that could really contribute. This is all a part of our internal thought process. Then RCM services in service tax vis-a-vis the TDS scope, that also we need to look at. And erstwhile service tax limit, I mean, of course, that particular issue is no more relevant under the GST law. The erstwhile ST limit vis-a-vis the people offering it to tax, and that being another reason for the difference between the TDS information and the service tax information. This perhaps, I would say in summary, is looking like this. If you do a thought process on why there could be a difference between the AS26 information and the previous service tax returns. Now, there was one major issue with regard to the QRMP scheme. Here, I would like to focus on what the government papers say. They focus on the fact that if you have opted for, I wouldn't say registered, I would say opted for QRMP, then there is something called the invoice furnishing facility. When you put your invoice on the invoice furnishing facility, the recipient will not be denied credit. So then automatically that information is available to the counterparty in 2A. That was my intervention to some of the earlier speakers. In my opinion, that is an upfront, and that can be done between 1st to 13th. I agree with you. This doesn't seem to be a very great ado about something that was not earlier thought about. But then looking at what the industry feels, what is more important is the trade and industry who are medium and large. Are they willing to deal with people who are lower than 5 to 10 crores? Suppose if you say that this QRMP is meant for people under 5 crores, unless the people above 25 or the entities above 25 and 50 and 100 deal with people below 5 crores, their entire trade will get affected. So just because they have adopted a QRMP scheme, how is it going to affect their terms and conditions with the larger players as suppliers? That, in my opinion, is a very commercial important principle. How this is really going to fan out, only the industries who are involved in purchasing from small people can speak up for themselves. This is one point. The third thing that I could really see with regard to I must say so, the E-invoicing scheme, which we had internally a thought. What about RCM goods? Now, with regard to for example, we can talk about with regard to goods. When tobacco leaves are sold by agricultural processors to somebody, that is under RCM for goods. Now, how will that be impacted under the new E-invoicing scheme? Because one of the FAQs very clearly admit that with regard to RCM scheme, if there is an upfront information to the supplier will perhaps raise the invoice. In my opinion, I don't think so. If you look at the list of the RCM goods, I'm not focusing on services for the time being. I'm focusing on goods. For example, cashew. For example, tobacco leaves. I think cement, if I'm not mistaken, is also there. So to that extent, bought by, civil construction people. So to that extent, if you really look at the larger perspective with regard to goods like cashew or with tobacco leaves, so how will RCM really work for the E-invoicing scheme for those guys who are above 100 crores? There could be agriculturalists who are selling over and above 100 crores if it comes up to. Now, one more thing that really from a point of view of intervention, I thought was, which is very, very important with regard to this anti-evasion activity that is currently going on. If you see the recent press note that has come out, of course, it's only the proceedings of the law committee which has got published. It says that we are going to have two focuses, that either you come forward for fresh registrations through the Aadhaar linked registration process with a live photograph, use of biometrics and other documentation, or the second option would be physical verification, physical identification if non-Aadhaar linked process. Now then they are saying there would be categorizing assessees into trustworthy and conditional registration. Now my opinion is this is opening up a Pandora's box, because previously we never felt anything that was saying once having registered, you cannot say somebody is trustworthy and somebody is conditional. But if you look at the economic press summary information that is available in the press, it looks like these concepts are coming in. While the final information will be out only after the council takes them on record and approves them, these things are opening up a new Pandora's box, I must say so. Largely, if the registration process is sacrosanct, does not mean that subsequently there'll be no evasion. Perhaps contributing to that thought itself is wrong. A person can be very correct up to the time of registration, post which if there is some element of invoicing issues, perhaps that will have to be dealt on an ongoing basis using their own BFA tools, as they call it. These were my initial intervention points for the panelists. And I would request now, with regard to the second round, what is the opinion of the panelists I would say, with regard to any system issues, because this, up to now, we have not covered any system issues, which we have covered only the macro principles. We have covered the fiscal issues that will come up. In particular, whether Mr. Subramanian or Mr. Anil Bhardwaj or Sant foresees any system issues. For example, the government of India very clearly said in the first week of October, they had noticed not less than 7 million invoices with regard to the E-invoicing scheme. So if you take the entire, for example, entire October is over and the GST collections have also come out in the press. If for 500 crores and above in the first month, E-invoicing has gone smooth, are they expecting any further troubles or in system troubles within the whole process? Over to the panelists. Mr. Subramanian first, please. Mr. Subramanian? I think we have lost him.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, two basic observations on what was said earlier, and then I'll come to the systems thing, particularly having been a domain expert for the GST and in my earlier.
Yeah.
See, one of the things I want to really highlight with respect to fake invoices. See, when we talk about fake invoices, it's not as if it is a forged invoice. Forged invoice is a fake invoice, no problem. I mean, because in any case, that's not, I think, what has come about. Most of the cases booked by the department are of a nature where a large player is always involved. It is not like, see, please understand, when a diversion takes place, the smaller fellows, smaller ones, are the ones who get the goods because they're not very keen on the credit part of it. It is the larger one who actually gets the credit for whatever reason. So in fact, even in the earlier times, if you really see, in the SSI units used to be there was diversion of goods. But there is always a participation of a larger player. So I just wanted to point out, because this is something which Mr. Sant Verma was mentioning. So I thought this fake invoice system is not merely limited to the smaller player; it also involves much larger players. That's one thing I wanted to highlight. Second is about the 26 As versus GST. Absolutely, there are issues. See, the question I always have is, you are already reconciling, even as a part of our own GST returns, annual return, etc. You are reconciling the entire balance sheet with whatever is the set of your entire all the entries in your balance sheet with respect to the profit and loss account. You are already doing a reconciliation. So therefore, now the question is, what is this further reconciliation with 26 AS, particularly when the whole 26 AS is talking about a different law, because the entire valuation mechanism, like what you pointed out. So I'm sure unless they do some greater amount of research, I mean, it will only, immediate thought process in terms of, this is not getting reconciled, I issue a show cause notice, or, I call them for a summons, is going to only harass the, assessees, is what my submission is. I mean, it is true that this needs to be investigated further and further, but I think a lot of homework has to be done by the department before it starts calling the assessees for discussion. I think that level of work, hopefully they are going to do in that. I mean, okay, when it comes to the systems issues, I mean, in fact, one of the issues which was pointed out by Mr. Vijay Kumar, because this is, I'm sure this was all a matter of discussion, even at the time of creating the GST. One of the issues which did come up, has always been that why is it that the original plan in the GST was to do the matching? Somewhere along the line, that matching seems to have failed, and everything is getting substituted. And please understand, the problem with the entire system is, because I think there was a mention about the MSP, the service provider also. One of the issues we always know in the IT system is that any variation, any change request will take about 6 months, because they got to first, understand the request, kind of find out the requirements, then, do the adjustments, and then finally go the testing, and then, finally put it into the market. Unfortunately, I think we also need to understand, making too many changes to the system only leads to more and more complications, and every complication leads to more and more disturbance of the system. I think that's something which is not going to lead to the ease of business. But the issue again we come back to is, please understand, when we talk about this QRMP, for example, kind of say, why not make it a simple thing that, yeah, you want to have a quarterly mechanism, please pay it, that's it, over. Because if you're, if they have the statistics in their hand, they can very well make it that, as far as return is concerned, make it on a quarterly basis, pay the money on the monthly basis, and it's over. See, I think the system can be simpler than whatever they're given. But they have complicated in such a manner that by the time we understand it, hopefully they're not going to further complicate it. That's I think the system is they're coming and kind of coming up with several other substitutes for it, which is actually perhaps not really working. That is what it is. And as far as the the 100 crore assessees are concerned, I still have my concerns, which is what I think you're pointing out. Particularly about those assessees who actually may not be fully on the system. I think unless you do some capacity building, I think it's going to be something which is not going to take off. I'm sure there is going to be some deferment, etc., etc. But I do believe that some capacity building has to take place, and the industry, perhaps, given the current state of COVID, is not fully prepared for it. Is my submission. If it's going to be reduced to 5 crore, it's going to be all the more serious an issue, because I think as consultants we can all, as practitioners, I'm sure it will all be a set of opportunities. But I think as assessees, the assessees can't be diverted from business and getting into full-time managing GST. I think that's something which the department understands, hopefully. Yeah, I think I made my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bhardwaj, please. With regard to the MSME sector, with regard to any system issues that you feel you still have with regard to the invoicing or the QRMP?
So the two brief points that I would like to mention, one is with the numerous offences and penalties is still under the GST. And the second is, it is amazing that when now exporters keep complaining that their refunds do not come in time. And unless they have a second channel established with the senior officials, their payments won't come in time. And there is a cost involved. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. And also, it differs from state to state. So that means it is not systemic. Somewhere down the line, it is system versus maybe we have to upgrade the technological system to an extent that such misadventures are also somewhat taken care of, and there is seamless system of refund of GST due to the exporters. Because otherwise, what happens is that a lot of working capital of the MSMEs that get blocked in the GST system, and that limits their ability to take larger orders and grow.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sant, anything on the systems perspective with regard to medium and large companies, mainly from an invoicing perspective, because it's about 1.5 months from first week of October till 20th of November. And what is the experience for the large companies above 500 crores with regard to the e-invoicing? Because I'm going to ask you a crucial question after you finish, because which is a very important question. I want you to finish, then we will ask, or we'll finish for the intervention to be over. So your views on the system issues with regard to the e-invoicing for the last 45 days.
So on my side, on Schneider, we have 9 operating entities in India, and I think fairly large. Except 2, we implemented this in all because the 2 were having turnover of less than 500 crore. And I've not heard from the team that there were any hiccups or issues. I think we have been able to implement this fairly okay. I was also in touch with some of the friends in the industry, and I think by and large, I have not heard even from them that they were struggling. So, like in anticipation that 1st of October is indeed the date of implementation, I think a lot of work we did starting 6 months before, because some of our platforms actually are ERP platforms are global platforms. So it was not easy to implement. So we had to kind of activate our resources and our IT team very well in advance. So we were able to do all of that. And we had timely testing in the month of September. All the testings, the UATs were done. So I think I have not experienced or heard of problems in my company. So that's one. I'll also quickly reply to one of your questions, Sridhar, which you mentioned about the QRMP, that how recipient would look at it, if the supplier is not filing invoices on a monthly basis. And that's a very good question, and also very valid from the buyer's point of view. And since we have this on the buyer, cast on the buyer, that he has to match and then take credit. If large companies keep buying from traders having less than 5 crores of turnover, and those opt for the scheme, they have to upload invoices on monthly basis. They must do it, otherwise they will risk losing their customers who are in the organized and the other sector. As long as they are doing B2C business, I don't see a challenge for them. But if they are also involved in B2B business, I think they need to practice at least filing the invoices on a monthly basis. I don't think they can escape that. If they escape that, then I think they will lose customers. Valid point here.
Thank you. Mr. Vijay Kumar, before we take that intervention point on e-invoicing, I thought I'll take use with regard to both the rounds and any issues that you feel you very important to raise, please.
Okay. But you said you wanted to ask some question to Mr. Sant Kumar.
Yeah. That I thought. Okay. See, actually,
okay, fine. Okay. I'll take only a minute or two.
Please.
Since that question seems to be very important, you are not letting out a secret. So. Anyway,
no, I'm not. It's not a big deal, Mr. Vijay Kumar. It is something. See, since e-invoices have come in, this is the larger question which I have in my mind. When will the e-way bill stop, Vijay Kumar? Which is, in my opinion, logical connect. Anybody is going to ask them. So October has passed. So can we say reasonably after 1st April 2021, by which time the COVID would have even left us, will e-way bill system also leave us if e-invoices fully replace the e-way bill system? And you bring it down to 100 crores or 50 crores, whatever the value, perhaps even as Shailendra was indicating, they are saying they may go up to even 5 crores. In which case, what happens to the e-way bill system? Where is the need?
Sridhar, I think very important, and e-way bill will die its own death because it loses its purpose beyond once the e-invoicing is stabilized. It was in any case an interim measure. Now e-invoice gets implemented for a large section of business community. I don't see any reason why e-way bill should continue. And as per my understanding, government is also mindful that at some time they will discontinue.
Yes, Mr. Vijay Kumar. Now, since that is answered.
Okay, that is the answer. That e-way bill system is going to die one day. Hopefully, the sooner the better.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But as Mr. Sivasubramanian said, I'm really surprised. There is a feeling among the enforcing department that the assessee exists for the sole purpose of paying GST. All other things, including his business. Somehow we don't understand that only if he does business and makes some money, he'll be able to pay the tax. But all his activities are required to be so concentrated that they believe that he is there only to pay GST. In fact, all these discussions with which Mr. Sivasubramanian is very familiar in the early days of GST and all. Strangely, when I went through the presentation of Mr. Nandan Nilekani, I find that he has understood GST concepts very, very clearly, which somehow the departmental officers, the consultants, the trade and all have not understood. In fact, Mr. Sridhar, he answered your question in 2018. He said, this is stupid to have these two things. You don't need to have an e-way bill and an e-invoice. The whole thing can be simple. If you just file all your invoices online and everything is matched, it is simple, it is possible. But again, as Mr. Sivasubramanian pointed out, too many changes, too frequently, the system is not able to accept. Say, as Mr. Sant Kumar said, his global technology requires, say, he was preparing for 6 months to get into that e-invoice system. And most probably, after 2 months, they will say, this e-invoice system is, the structure is changed and you'll have to add your neighboring commissionerate also into that list or something. Again, maybe it takes 6 months. So when Mr. Nilankani made his presentation to the GST Council, the chairman of the GST Council said that the political view was that the suggestions of Mr. Nilankani are far, far simpler. But somehow the bureaucratic, the executive, feared that there will be evasion, there will be total chaos, there will be no simplicity, and above all, I think they feared that they will lose their power to that simple computer. So I think the whole thing is that we have too many officers chasing too little fake invoices. And as he rightly said, there is no need of an e-way bill and an e-invoice. One e-invoice is enough. Your quarterly payment, quarterly return and monthly payment, all these things can be really simplified if you want to make life simpler for the SSC and make this GST a possible success. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Shailendra, your views, please, finally, so that we move to the question and answers.
Okay, yes, please.
I think we are running out of time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's already well articulated. The e-way bill, as Mr. Sant rightly said, that it has to, it has a very limited shelf life. It will expire very soon, But presently, I think the department is finding that the number of e-invoices, the number of e-way bills, there are a lot of mismatch there also. So I think they will take some time before, it becomes a little comforting for them, to dismantle this e-way bill system. So it will take some time. So let's take up some of the questions. I think some of the attendees are waiting for that.
So actually on my question answer box, I have only one question here, unless of course it is from a person called Sagar Arora. Don't you feel there still be an open window for fake invoices, as now 100 crore is the limit? So I would leave it to the panelists to answer this. Anyone? Sant or Mr. Sivasubramanian? Subramanian, please.
You want me to take that? What is that?
Yeah, you can. It's free.
We didn't get the question.
Yeah, can I repeat the question for you? Yeah.
Yes,
see,
please.
Don't you feel there will still be an open window for fake invoices, as now 100 crore turnover is the limit? That is the question.
I'll tell you something. Yeah. I think we Indians are ingenious in finding way out, So there would be some section of society. We have I would say, layered business community. As we have layered society, we have layered business community also. There are multiple layers, maybe 9-10 different layers. There are few layers where we have mischief going on. They take pride in doing all of this mischief. So I think up to 100 crore, maybe to some extent, we'll be able to control, but the gap between below 100 crore and even people above 100 crore, they want to do something clandestinely. How you handle that?
This
is a real problem. And I think in our society, this is a real problem.
There is something on the chat board also.
Linked to the overall corruption ethos that we have, indiscipline and corruption, I think is a problem for us.
There is one on the chat board also from Mr. Gururaj. I think it's a very good point, I must say so. If an invoice is matched, can we say it is not a fake invoice? Can an e-invoice with absolute matching establish that the goods were supplied? This is perhaps, once again, looking at the situation of how people are suspecting things are going on. I don't have any other question on the question answer board, Mr. Shailendra, apart from this. Unless, of course, you tell me, am I missing something, Mr. Shailendra?
You have left nothing for anyone to question about.
No, right. Even I can't see any further other questions either.
Yeah. Yes. Some of the observations were there, yes, but yes, we have answered most of it, yes.
So I must say so, this has been a perhaps entertaining and a very enlightening session. Entertaining in the sense that everything that appears as fake invoices at large is really not fake is also one point that has come up. Secondly, the fact that we can, the ado about quarterly return and monthly payment scheme, unless the ISSC finds it really interesting, and unless the larger industry does not treat the smaller industry in a perhaps minimal way because he's on a QRMP, then only it would be really successful. That point has come up. And largely, but not the least, the fate of e-way bill is very, very important when you are reducing the limits of e-invoicing. That has also come out. And last but not the least, we cannot keep on categorizing assessees as trustworthy or perhaps conditional with the multi-pronged strategy on anti-evasion. And therefore, there has to be an end to all these things, because you can't only have a legislation working with anti-evasion as a process. So these are the things that perhaps I would say in summary came out. Thank you very much, panelists, all of you.
I think there are two questions. There are two questions which have come up in the.
Yeah, please. I know it must have come up now. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Now, one says, even if there is a e-way bill, how does it make sure that goods are moved physically? Yes. See, what happens is the general. I mean, the systemic faith is that everything which moves also has a corresponding documentary trail. At every documentary trail, somewhere along the line, we ensure that the documents are put in a manner that, one is e-way. For example, e-way, the bill is also having a corresponding vehicle number. The vehicle obviously would have moved. So tomorrow there is always a possibility to verify that, this vehicle actually moved and the vehicle did carry something. And I mean, if you go to the other side, I'm sure there would be some receipt, which would have been issued, and the other party would have taken, taken such goods into their account. So it's basically the documentary trail which is verified. And yes, there is no 100% foolproof system that the goods have actually moved. But the fact is that the documentary trail is there, is perhaps the best mechanism by which we can verify that. That's, I think, I mean, probably the way to, answer this question, if there is any other answer in this. And there is one other question which says, is it going back to Inspector Raj? I think that, what Mr. Sridhar was pointing out about that, what is being recommended by the law committee, in the report seems to be really kind of, having a physical, verification of the premises before a registration can be issued. I think it's going to be open for challenge. Either it's going to be Inspector Raj or it's going to be open for challenge, because it may curtail our freedom of even of doing business. I think that's what it appears to me. But I'm sure the panelists would have a view on this. But yes, I mean, I'm just trying to answer some question which has come up. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, and thank you everyone for attending, and the participants. It has been a heartening session. Maybe because we didn't have much time, we started a bit late by about 2-3 minutes. We couldn't answer other questions. Thank you so